Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time, and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We'd like to move quickly through our call and bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people. You have other things to do. We have a standard format on our calls. We spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential reset of some of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about what's going on in Iraq today. It's a very confusing situation. But first, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. And, of course, the most relevant piece of information for those of us that hold the dinar particularly is the potential window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We're in a peculiar situation. There have been two prior occasions when they were close to the reinstitution of the dinar. But in both of those cases, despite the fact that they had a rather dysfunctional government in place, they did in fact have a government in place. It was the CBI. It was nowhere near the completion of the currency reforms. We find ourselves in a reverse position today because the CBI is ready to proceed. They have completed the project of deleting the zeros. The lower denominations are in the possession of the 8 regional banks for dissemination to the general public. The auctions can be stopped at a moment's notice. But the situation now is that we have a caretaker government, and we seem to be unable to finally get that last piece of the puzzle, a prime minister in place that can get a cabinet through the parliament. Now, as you know, the last attempt was through Alawi, who finally resigned because he simply could not get his cabinet in place. And President Salih, president of the Republic, had until March 17th to make a subsequent appointment, nominee. He did so on that date. He nominated a gentleman by the name of Adnan al-Zarfi. Zarfi is supported by the Sadrists. He's supported by some of the Shia, Sunni, and Kurd blocs. But as expected, he is opposed by several of the more radical pro-Iranian blocs, primarily because al-Zafari did not vote in the parliament, and he was a member of parliament at the time, for the removal of U.S. forces from Iraq. So that, in and of itself, is reason enough for the corrupt pro-Iranian Iraqi officials to oppose him. And as a matter of fact, they've already provided the names of additional individuals. Of course, all these individuals are lackeys for the Iranians, just as the Iraqi officials themselves are, and they have no chance of being selected and then confirmed as prime minister. So where does that leave us in terms of a window for the reinstitution of the dinar? If things go well, it's not a probability, but it is a possibility. If things go well, we're looking at a window of from 45 to 90 days. Why that time frame? Because it would take 30 days at minimum for al-Zarfi to get his cabinet in place, assuming he would name individuals, they would be accepted. If some were not accepted, there would then be negotiations to bring in other individuals. So they're going to use the whole 30 days, if for no other reason, the blocs that oppose him, to do everything they can to try to squeeze him to select individuals to their liking. If that were to occur, it'd take anywhere from 15 to 30 days at that point for the CBI then to dot all its I's, cross all its T's, get the approval of the Finance Committee that the Parliament put in as supervision over them for the reinstitution of their currency. Worst case scenario, of course, which is a possibility, would be that this individual, along with Alawi and his predecessors, are all rejected on wholly sectarian means, and it could push the revaluation to January of 21. I don't think that's going to happen, but I have to present that as the worst-case scenario. As I said, the CBI is ready to proceed, but of course they need the formation of the new government, and they need economic stability. Now, there are a couple of things going on short-term globally that will affect not only the reinstitution of the currency, but their 2020 budget as well. The 2020 budget is based on, of course, revenues and expenditures. The revenue side is based primarily on the sale of petroleum. And the projection at the time the 2020 budget was written was the barrel of oil would be at between $45 and $50. As of yesterday, the Brent crude global price is $27 a barrel. That's $5 less than the oil credits we were given when a barrel of oil was $100. So at that price, the budget just doesn't fly. Fortunately, if this thing does not turn around, and I do believe that the tumble in the price of a barrel of oil is short-term, primarily the result of the Russians trying to basically destroy the American fracking industry, and the Saudis in response dropping the price of oil to hurt Russia, because Russia is financing their mortal enemy, Iran. You can see how complicated this gets. But I think it's short-term, and I think the price of a barrel is going to turn around. But if it does not, the World Bank has already said that they're prepared to make loans to Iraq and other countries that have relied primarily in terms of their revenue on the sale of petroleum. So that issue probably in and of itself is not going to be a deal breaker. The other issue in Iraq is the confrontation between the United States and Iran. And it seems as though a confrontation would be inevitable. Iraqi caretaker government simply has not done a good job of protecting U.S. contractors, international contractors, and U.S. facilities in Iraq. The Iranian-backed militia continues with their campaign of firing missiles on U.S. facilities in sort of a hit-and-run strategy. They hide the missiles, they time them for release at night, and they disappear. They're long gone by the time those missiles are launched. And the United States has a little bit of a dilemma now how to deal with this. They could either respond in kind and actually substantially increase their response, or they could simply wait the Iranians out. Myself personally, I'd like to see him take out one of Iraq's 5 main oil fields. This is just pure math. Last year, Iran's budget was about $400 billion. They pilfered approximately $40 billion from Iraq. So roughly 10% of their revenues, which represents about 10% of what they generate every year through their own efforts. Iran has 5 major oil fields, so if they generate collectively about $300 billion a year, that means that each of their 5 major oil fields generate about $60 billion a year. If the United States were to take out just one of those oil fields, the $40 billion that they pilfered from Iraq on an annual basis would be dwarfed by the $60 billion that Iran would lose with the destruction of one of their oil fields. So the math clearly works there. The problem is, what would that generate in the region in terms of the potential for escalating a war? The other option, which is the one that seems the United States, at least today, is willing to take, is the wait and see. Remember that recently Soleimani, who was head of the Quds forces, an Iranian, basically strongman for the mullahs, and Mahdi al-Muhandis, the number one guy in Iraq, were killed when they were in Iraq orchestrating attacks on U.S. facilities. The U.S. sanctions have really brought the Iranian economy to their knees. The dropping of the oil prices, at least short term, is going to create extremely more problems for Iran. U.S. still has strong sanctions against both Iranian and pro-Iranian Iraqi officials, which has curtailed their travels. And despite the fact that Iran's being closed-minded about it, the coronavirus has had a devastating effect on Iran as well. So for all of those reasons, at least for the time being, it seems as though the Trump administration and the State Department is taking a wait-and-see attitude. We'll see how that all plays out. So the next 45 days, or rather the next 30 days, should be interesting because we now see that the new the Prime Minister designate is in a position now to name his ministerial cabinet. The opposing blocs are already making demands about who they want and representation. So, as I said, it's not impossible, but there is the possibility that this could get resolved, meaning that we're looking at a reinstitution again in the next 45 to 60 days, and I'm hopeful that that will finally occur. I still think, however, the linchpin is somehow making Iran understand that it's going to be counterproductive for them to continue to do what they're doing. And again, in my opinion, until they lose one of their oil fields, I just don't think they're going to get the message. They're never going to see the light, but they need to be made to feel the heat. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, assuming things go well, and there's no reason to believe that over the next 45 to 60 days that they won't, individuals need to get their affairs in order prior to the reinstitution and evaluation of the Iraqi dinar globally. Most dinarians are not wealthy individuals. They're hardworking people that don't necessarily have a lot of dinar. But if the dinar comes back at a rate anywhere close to what it was when the dinar was placed in the program rate, they're going to become extremely wealthy people overnight. And so for the first time in their life, they're going to have to manage a substantial amount of money. To assist them, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a package of pre-RV asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. Post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's start and talk a little bit about Phase 1, which is the establishment of your package of irrevocable trusts. Now, why do we propose that you establish this package of trusts? Very simply because it provides the best asset protection available domestically in the United States. There are other entities that one can establish to provide some level of asset protection. For example, individuals can establish LLCs or sub-S corporations, and they do provide some level of asset protection, but primarily by dividing business assets from personal assets. The problem here is that these currencies are a personal asset. In addition, courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations owned in the majority by either one person or a closely held group, like a family, can be pierced for civil litigation. So for these reasons, the LLC and the sub-S corporation are not going to be appropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established something called a revocable or a living trust, and these trusts will exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate and can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate the federal estate tax. However, revocable or living trusts can provide no privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for your needs. Some individuals have established single irrevocable trust, a single irrevocable trust. And the inherent flaw with this approach, even though this is substantial asset protection, is that all of your assets are owned by this one trust. Therefore, if any of these assets or business interests are involved in civil litigation, that would necessarily drag all of your other assets and net worth into that litigation for the very simple reason that they're all owned by that one single entity. This is why we have established a package of irrevocable trusts. I'm going to be explaining to you why this provides superior asset protection and why this package must be established prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. So let's run through some of this reasoning. First, by establishing this package of asset protection trusts, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you will be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computer will probably spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. Such an audit would be extremely frustrating because it's coming along at precisely the time these currencies are revalued, and you have many other things you'd rather be doing. And lastly, the cost of a 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your pre-RV package of trust is in force and you have assigned your currencies on paper to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation were to occur within a sophisticated trust package such as ours. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because included within this trust package is our specially designed gift subtrust. Now, philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% gift tax, you need to gift currencies to family and friends prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the U.S. dollar lump sum after you have negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished with a standard gift letter outside the trust. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give any of these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through this gift subtrust. And because you're gifting them through the subtrust, that means that their U.S. dollars will be protected along with your money as well. In addition, the language of this subtrust will allow you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies meaning you can gift to these individuals the exact U.S. dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. But because you're gifting through this subtrust, you will be the individual that will manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package, pre-RV, is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you two quick scenarios. Scenario number one, you purchased 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with the probate court. And that could tie your estate up for years, and in some cases, even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax, the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. Scenario number two, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate, there will be no public disclosure of your estate, there will be no public disclosure of your heirs. They will all have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV package of asset protection trusts is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchased 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer them to our trust package. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust has been specifically designed to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title to our trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This is asset protection designed to protect you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. This is why we've established a package of trusts, and this is how it would work. Again, we'll use the same example. You purchased 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this superior asset protection? Well, I'll give you an example. Let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars. You have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets and net worth are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts or entities are separate legal persons, and as such, the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity or person. So your trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, all of these benefits that I've detailed here today are lost to you if you do not establish your package of irrevocable trusts prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it is this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in all of the valuable products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of these currencies. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, for our trust holders approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited, including myself, to instruct you with the management and funding of your trust packages. Many of our clients have already expressed desires to establish scholarship funds, foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is through direct transfer of funds from your asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll also have our tax specialists there. You'll get very valuable information about some very sophisticated tax strategies that, with your newfound wealth, you're going to need to understand. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets to protect this new wealth as soon as possible for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get a substantial amount of your net worth out of the banks and at work in other markets. And lastly, the general global shift from fiat-based to Basel III compliant commodity-backed currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets. And again, you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth in tangible assets to avoid that volatility. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of the one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, and then financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, one gift subtrust which can be converted initially or any time in the future to a standard subtrust, and then 8 additional standard subtrusts to hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But a few years back, that's actually going on close to 10 years, when we decided to work with Dinarians, we knew that that price tag was going to be simply unaffordable for many. So by basically postponing the funding of this trust and simplifying the package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we've even established a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the evaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. Now, with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you'd be paying us under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. One other point on our trust package. The only other cost of this trust package, lifetime, would be the paralegal fees for making changes or funding the subtrusts. I'll give you an example. Let's say 3 or 4 months after the evaluation, you contact us and say, we're about to close on a $400,000 beach house, and we'd like to protect that in a subtrust. The cost for establishing that subtrust would be somewhere between $150 and $200, which would be the paralegal fee, again, a very nominal fee to protect a $400,000 asset. So this trust package will work for you lifetime, and again, the only additional cost would be the nominal paralegal fees involved. With the principals of Trust Unlimited receive no further compensation for this trust package. Now, we will be going to a Q&A in just a moment, but before we do, I'd like to, for the benefit of our newer viewers, tell you a little bit about Trust Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider contacting us to get our initial no-obligation package. This trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have actually been working together for a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time, such as the time we're talking about right now, where people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. Under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate for the society is identity theft, courtesy of the information age. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. So again, I'd like to thank you for listening to the call. We're going to go to the Q&A in just a moment. If the things we've discussed here are relevant to your situation, I strongly suggest you contact us. We'll be happy to send you our no-obligation initial package. It does contain everything you need if you should decide with applying for a trust package, but again, that's entirely up to you. You're under no obligation. The package includes a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the revaluation itself. You're also welcome to contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you, and there will be no consultation fee. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We don't take any service calls on the Q&A. This time is reserved for individuals that have questions about Trusts Unlimited and our services. Our clients obviously can contact us by phone or email if they have an issue. And second, for obvious reasons, in order to participate in the Q&A, your name and number must be on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and open up now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. For more information about Trusts Unlimited, you can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon with the exception of the last digit or number. Rather than dialing 4, you'll dial a 3 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the Dinar, emails with valuable information may be going out as often as weekly. So let's go here to our Q&A. Our first caller here is from area code 409. That's 409. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm fine.
Heard this week that the Dinar was going to be possibly trading on the Forex. If that were to happen, it would go to a float, and that would mean that it had revalued? Or they stuck it out there?
I don't see how it could go on the Forex at a float or at the rate it will eventually rest at. The currency hasn't even reinstituted in country. So the only way that you could purchase currency or trade in currency would be to purchase the currency directly through one of the purveyors. I've never seen a currency on the Forex that's in a program rate with the IMF.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, it seemed to come from
I guess anything's possible. It happens. The first time I've ever heard of a currency on a program rate on the Forex. My understanding of the process would be the currency would reinstitute in country, then it would revalue, and then go on the Forex.
Okay. All righty. Thank you very much.
Sure. Bye-bye. Next caller is area code 801. That's 801. Go ahead.
Jim, it's Clay. How are you this afternoon or morning?
Okay, sir.
Good. Listen, quick question. Does the IQD, or any currency for that matter, transfer from one trust to another without a taxable event?
Yes, but it would depend. It would depend on if the tax had already been paid, and it would depend on if it was being transferred to a charitable entity. The other issue, unfortunately, is the IRS still has not confirmed what's in the code, namely pursuant to 980.82, that the gain outside of a trust would be cap gain, and pursuant to 643B, that the profit enjoyed from the exchange within an irrevocable trust is tax deferred. So we don't really have the answers to those questions, but the only taxable transfer would be real estate transferring, and that would be a state issue. But on a federal tax, I don't believe there would be a tax again unless there was a tax that was due that had not been paid.
Well, listen, the reason I asked that question is because my IQD and my dong is already in my trust. I have a trust, and the money is in there along with several other assets I have in there. But I like the idea of the subtrust. So the reason for that question is it seems to me it'd be better for me to wait till after the RV and then transfer from one trust to another.
No, you want to transfer prior to the revaluation because there is no taxable event then.
Well, what I'm saying is if it's already in a trust, though.
I don't care where it is. You can transfer it tax-free prior to the revaluation. I can make no such assertion post-RV.
Oh, I see. So what you're saying is post-RV, it could be taxable because of the transfer.
Right, but pre-RV, you can move it from pocket to pocket all you want.
Oh, I see. Okay. I thought it did make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other question I have real quick is I was told that the currency auctions have stopped as of March 17th. Is that true?
That's when they were supposed to have stopped. I don't have confirmation for that, but they should have stopped long ago. And unfortunately, as long as we have the corrupt, radical Shia officials, they're going to continue to try to skim one way or another. But you're right, they were supposed to have stopped because they were given a prohibition on the U.S. sanctions pursuant to stopping the auctions. I don't have confirmation that they stopped. Frankly, that's one of the things I should have pursued this morning, but I just had other issues that I was dealing with. But now I've written that down because I'm gonna talk to my people in Iraq as soon as we get off the phone and see if I can find out what's going on.
Okay, you'll have some information on that, I assume, next Wednesday's call.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Thanks, Jim.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Okay. Bye-bye. All right. Our next caller is area code 347. Yes. That's 347.
Yes, this is from New York. Yeah, I did hear that the currency auctions did stop, but I heard it was temporary because of the coronavirus, or is this more of a permanent thing in process for the revaluation to take place, or is it actually both?
Well, that's probably true, and another reason they might not want to stop them outright, their excuse would be the cost of oil per barrel dropping so much they quote unquote needing more currency or need to get more reserve U.S. dollars, and they need to auction the dinar in order to get the dollars. But again, I don't have confirmation on that. So the idea was that it was to stop in order to avoid having the U.S. sanctions kick back in. But again, I'll have to talk to my people and see what I can find out about that.
Well, was it because of the coronavirus, or is that just an excuse to?
I don't know. I just don't know. And I will tell you this: the coronavirus has had much more of an effect on Iran than Iraq, but that doesn't mean that it's not an issue. But I'm like I said, I that's one issue that I just did not.
But Iraq is under. Yeah, but Iraq has a state of emergency too, right, due to the coronavirus, I think.
I understand that, but I don't know if that in and of itself would have anything to do with the auctions. I just can't confirm that, so I just don't want to say something that I don't know to be the case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Well, that was our last call for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. I know that we were hoping that the government would get formed in as much as the CBI has pretty much done its work. But to be of good cheer, because there is the possibility that al-Zarfi might be the guy to get this done. He is a Shia, but he's moderate Shia. I also understand that he's been in discussions with Abadi, who was another gentleman that hopefully can assist him to move things forward. But if anything of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and next Wednesday, our next scheduled call, we will certainly try to get an emergency call out, an emergency email, so that we can discuss whatever's happened. Failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.